A leak for Black Ops 6 Zombies dropped on Twitter, and whilst I don't normally cover leaks, this one in particular is very interesting to me. Apparently, it was discovered that Zombies has 3 different modes. You'll have Standard, which we already know about. It's just a standard gameplay at launch. We've got Story, which is the guided mode, the one that makes Easter eggs easier and has a round cap. But on top of that, there's apparently another mode called Classic, and we're going to talk about that today because you guys might remember that I made a video quite a while back, about 2 years ago, talking about my idea of a simple way to save COD Zombies and appeal to every kind of fan. In essence, what I talked about was inspiration from multiplayer, in which they have core and hardcore playlists. And my idea was to translate that into Zombies so that fans who liked the old classic way of playing Zombies could do so in the hardcore playlist, whilst the core playlist retained all of the Cold War features. Of course, loads of Cold War features, pretty much all of them, have come into Black Ops 6, and so if Black Ops 6 has a classic mode as a third separate distinct mode, I can only assume that they might actually be going ahead with this hardcore idea. Of course, it's named classic instead of hardcore, but it's still the same in essence. So we're going to dive in right now to what this mode needs and the best way to get this right, because this is potentially absolutely huge for the game and can drastically expand how many people continuously play Black Ops 6 into the future. Because when I made that video back then, I spoke about how divided the community is between fans of Cold War and fans of like legacy zombies from, you know, World at War up to Black Ops 3. And that was almost 2 years ago. I feel like that divide is even bigger now. So it's more important than ever that Treyarch find an effective solution to bring these communities together, because having them all satisfied in one game is not only profitable for them, but everyone's happy. So let's talk about this leaked Classic mode. Now, one thing that I love about this leak that excites me is that initially when I first heard about Classic mode, because someone did actually at me on Twitter asking if I was working at Treyarch because of how similar this sounded to what I was asking for, but I was worried that Classic mode was, you know, just another word for the standard mode, you know, the non-guided mode. But no, this is a separate individual mode, and if it's truly what the name implies, here's what I think this mode will be, or at least needs to have. I'm not saying Treyarch listen to my videos, but if there's any Treyarch devs who happen to have stumbled upon this, hear me out. Now, the beauty of this Classic Zombies game mode is that in essence, all that's really needed from the development side of things is to take away a lot of the things that Cold War introduced. Now, some Cold War fans are going to wonder, why would you even want to play a game that is just the same thing but with reduced features? And I'll tell you why. It's because it's better. Zombies at its core is meant to be simplistic, it's supposed to be challenging, and it's supposed to be a streamlined cooperative mode, of course, unless you play solo, that encourages you to work together. You know, the days of panicking because you haven't had a max ammo for like 3 rounds and you're all running low, and what do? You band together, you jump behind some traps and you activate them. You try and work with what you can get. Ever since Cold War, man, stuff like that has just never happened. That tense fear of being in a situation where things just aren't looking good doesn't happen anymore, because you have so many overpowered crutches, you have so many means to basically prevent any kind of real struggle happening. And this is also why I initially referred to, you know, this idea as being a hardcore playlist, because it's meant to be harder, wink wink. But manufacturing this mode, as I said, should in theory be pretty easy for Treyarch to do, because again, it's just removing stuff. So immediately right off the bat, here's what I'd love hardcore mode to actually do. Ammo crates, gone. Because the thing is, like I described with that max ammo situation, those tense experiences were fun. They were really enjoyable. And maybe if you ran low on a ray gun, for example, you know, and you had no choice but to trade it out. You go to the box, you switch out your weapons. Back in the day, that was a tough situation, but it made you think on your feet. You had to work harder to survive. And that was part of the charm of the game mode. Now you can just waltz up to the ammo crate and buy ammo for even a wonder weapon. It's actually astounding to me how much of an effect just adding an ammo box had on destroying that classic panicking feeling you'd get trying to survive on the older games. So needless to say, of course they weren't in the older games anyway, ammo boxes need to go. Now the next thing that this mode needs to do is it needs to restore one currency system, points. Salvage needs to go, because this is another way that the game mode just felt far more complicated than it needed to be. I mean, Black Ops 6 at least does streamline salvage into one type of salvage instead of 2 different types, but it's still not enough. There just needs to be one currency system in this game mode, because dividing certain features behind 2 different currency systems just makes things messy for no real reason. Not only in terms of keeping tabs on what you can buy and what you can afford, but also in terms of cluttering the HUD and also decluttering the environment when zombies drop salvage on the floor. It just looks ugly. So in this classic mode, I'd love to see them just keep it as points, just scrap salvage altogether. Now, on the topic of currency systems, we come to the next major thing that I think the classic mode needs. And this is all stuff that I also mentioned in that video that I made 2 years ago, but that is bring back the old point system. This is something that the community is very, very vocal about. We want the old point system back. There are so many reasons for this, because it would give purpose to even underpowered weapons. You'd grab like an underpowered SMG just to rake in those points, and it did a very good job of allowing players to diversify their weapon loadout throughout the game, as opposed to just sticking to one weapon for the whole thing. It also made things interesting in terms of strategies, trying to get to the boss fights on round 2, for example, by doing all kinds of complex methods and long-winded hoops and jumps in terms of like blending speedrun strategies with point conservation. It just made for some very interesting videos back in the day, and of course some of common community knowledge trickled down into, you know, public sessions. You'd see people shooting the legs of zombies with a starting pistol, you know, 5-6 times in the leg before knifing to maximize point output. This is the kind of stuff that isn't here anymore, and this is the kind of stuff that a classic point system in a classic mode could bring back. And let's be clear during this video that we are talking about a separate mode here, so whilst I'm dunking on these Cold War features, they'll still be in the game in the standard playlist. But in this classic playlist, the old point system has to return. And once it goes hand in hand with the other points I'm going to make in this video, it's all just going to tie together so well. Now, next, I want to talk about how this classic mode should handle weapons, because this is a big deal for me. So we're going to deep dive into this topic in particular, because I think there's a myriad of ways that Treyarch could bring the classic feel of zombies back through how they handle weapons in this mode. Now, first, let's get the obvious things out of the way. Weapon rarities need to go, because simply it's not true to how zombies was back in the day, and this is a classic mode. It needs to go back to the classics, so weapon rarities just go, because it also made things a little too complex in terms of the simplicity, the beautiful simplicity of zombies, by making weapons effectively have 2 different stages of upgrades, where you have tiered pack-a-punch and then tiered rarity. Too much, far too much. And I've spoken in other videos about how this also fundamentally prevents you from wanting to try other weapons during your game, because once you spend so much time upgrading one weapon, it feels just insane to switch to another, whereas in the old games it was almost encouraged. You guys might remember how back in the day, you know, in a map like Kino de Toten, for example, everyone would stay in the starting room, everyone would fight with the M1911. Some people bought an M14 or an Olympia, but you know, most real ones use this starting pistol, and as a team you'd rack up enough points to buy your way to the MP40 room, and everyone would grab an MP40, and that was just kind of how it was. You didn't just stick with the weapon you started with, you were actually upgrading your arsenal as you progressed through the map. Similarly with 5 and grabbing the MPL after the first door. This kind of stuff just isn't in the newer CODs because of the systems that are put in place, and these systems absolutely need to be abolished in this classic mode to restore purpose to things like wall buys, because let's face it, these systems make wall buys especially completely useless. And once weapon rarities go, we also need to talk about Pack-a-Punch. Now, on this particular topic, I'm a little divided between a few ideas that I have. But remember, fundamentally, this classic or hardcore mode, as I like to call it, is beautifully simple, because all it really has to do is take features from Cold War away to restore the classic feel of zombies. So with that in mind, I think we can all agree that tiered Pack-a-Punch as a concept needs to go, because back in the day, you just upgrade your weapon once and that was it. Of course, this also needs to bring back the knuckle crack animation, because I see a lot of people talking about that, and that would just be a nice, you know, way of paying homage to the classic fan base within this mode by restoring that animation, just because, you know, why not? But then at this point, I kind of hit a wall with where I feel in terms of Pack-a-Punch, because on the one hand, I do like alternate ammo types, and of course, you can definitely say that Black Ops 3 at this point is part of the classic sphere of zombies, the legacy camp of zombies, so to speak. And so many people could argue that, you know, alternate ammo types should be present, but then at the same time, there's definitely going to be a sea of people that feel like, you know, alternate ammo types is a product of the new wave of zombies. Even though it was first introduced in Black Ops 3, it definitely still felt like a stray away from the simplistic nature of games like Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. Now, if you ask me, I've been playing zombies literally since World at War. I actually do think that alternate ammo types should come back. I think the arsenal system should just go away, and it should be just like Black Ops 3. You upgrade the weapon once, that's it, and then any upgrade thereafter is going to do a roll of the dice as to what AAT your gun gets. I like it this way, and I'm happy for this to be the method that they implement going into this classic mode. But even if they decided to completely scrap alternate ammo types altogether, I wouldn't complain. Again, this is a classic mode, so if they decide to increase the difficulty by removing alternate ammo types, we can't complain. We really can't complain. And I love Black Ops 1, so I'm not going to be completely against it. But the other thing that I'm kind of on the fence of when it comes to weapons is loadouts. Now, I think it's pretty clear that no matter what, you should spawn in with an M1911 or an equivalent starting pistol. Everyone should spawn in with a starting pistol. You should not be able to spawn in with whatever weapon you want. Bringing back the classic starting pistol at the beginning of the game would contribute massively to the nostalgic feel of Zombies and appeasing the classic fan base. I mean, I'm smiling now just imagining everyone hopping into Terminus or Liberty Falls with just a starting pistol, because I can imagine, again, with the old point system being restored, that we'll be able to identify, you know, the classic zombie players by seeing who shoots the legs before meleeing and stuff like that. It would just be a fun little nod to the people who've been playing Zombies for so many years. So starting pistol was just unanimous. I think everyone agrees that for a classic mode, that should be in there. But where I'm on the fence is with weapon kits and being able to select your own attachments for all of the weapons found around the map. Now, again, on the one hand, this was a feature in Black Ops 3, and this was first introduced in Black Ops 3, which again, you could class as a classic Zombies mode at this point. But hear me out, at the same time, the one reason I'm somewhat skeptical about having weapon kits in this classic mode is because if they don't put in weapon kits, they could give Pack-a-Punch an additional purpose. Because if you remember back in the days of World at War and Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, when you'd upgrade a weapon, you'd actually be pretty curious as to what came out the other side. Would your weapon change firing mode? Would it get a grenade launcher attachment? Would it get a master key shotgun? Would it become explosive? There's many things that they did that made certain weapons very intriguing, especially as in some cases they weren't even attachments. If you take, for example, the M1A1 carbine from World at War and Black Ops 1, when you upgraded that, it turned into a full auto beast, and that wasn't an attachment that was available on that gun back in World at War. It just became a feature of the upgraded variant exclusively. And so I feel like if we don't have weapon kits in this classic mode, it can give Treyarch a canvas to actually repurpose a lot of these weapons with not only preset attachments, which, you know, could sway how you feel about a gun, but chiefly and more importantly, they can actually bring more spice to the functionality of the weapon outside of generic attachments. For example, an underbarreled grenade launcher on an M16 that doesn't actually fire grenades, but fires Nova 6 gas or something like that. You know, there's a lot of avenues Treyarch could explore, especially over the time of the life cycle of Black Ops 6, you know, as new seasons are introduced, that could add a lot of spice to the Pack-a-Punch of the classic mode. But of course, to achieve this, weapon kits would need to be scrapped. And to be honest, I would be happy with either scenario, because at the same time, I do like choosing my own attachments for my weapons. I can see the pros of both, but again, we are talking about a separate game mode. So even if weapon kits are scrapped in the classic mode, of course, you can utilize them in the standard mode, in the guided mode. So again, either way, I'm happy when it comes to weapon kits. But going through everything we spoke about with weapons, I think with any of the choices we've touched on, I would be happy, and I think that a lot of the community would be as well. And I can't stress enough that the way they handle weapons is integral to the success of this classic mode, if it's actually real. Of course, this is a leak, let's not forget, but the leaks come from a pretty credible source, so hopefully time will tell. But moving on, let's talk about the all-important topic of the HUD. Now, there's a lot of different things Treyarch could do here, but fundamentally we all agree that the HUD needs to be reduced massively. Now, a lot of people are going to mention that you can customize the HUD in the standard mode anyway, but that doesn't change the fact that, you know, there are certain things about the HUD that you can't change, that are just vile, let's be honest. For example, having your points displayed as, you know, kind of like an XP kill feed in the middle of the screen is just it's not nice. It's not nice at all. It was so much cleaner and so much nicer on the best HUD of all time, Black Ops 1. Black Ops 1 had the best Zombies HUD in my opinion because of how simplistic, how elegant it was, and how zombified it was. I mean, it was blood splatters, but they made it look classy, and it was only ever really telling you the things you need to know. It even faded out some HUD features that weren't being used. Like, for example, if you didn't shoot your gun for a while, that whole part of the HUD would just gently fade away because, you know, it wants to immerse you more. It only needs to tell you information as and when you need to know it. Whereas, as you've probably seen from the countless memes, you know, the new wave of COD zombie HUDs, man, it's just not it. at the very least, the HUD for the classic mode is going to naturally be more bare bones anyway, because things like salvage and armor, because I'm going to touch on that as well, are going to be removed. And whilst I can assume you can just choose to disable the mini map and stuff like that, on the off chance that for whatever reason you can't actually customize the HUD as much as we think you can, then needless to say, the mini map needs to go. The points need to be shown in the classic way, you know, next to the actual points instead of in the middle of the screen in size 72 font, you know, all of the obvious stuff. And fundamentally, it needs to follow a similar HUD template to Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. Next, let's talk about the player power, as in, you know, perks, armors, stuff like that. Now, armor system, get rid of it. Wasn't in the classic zombies, doesn't need to be there. It should just be one system in terms of health. It should just be your health. You can have Juggernog to boost your health, and that's that. I will give Cold War credit for scrapping buildables, because I'm not gonna lie, I know a lot of people love Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3. I hate the buildable system. I always did. In fact, I was really happy when Cold War got rid of it. And I think, you know, they shouldn't deliberately put in buildables for the classic mode, because that literally, it doesn't make sense. Again, fundamentally, this mode needs to be stripping back features that are in Black Ops 6, Cold War features, stuff like that, and having it as a separate playlist. So without buildables and without the armor system, naturally we're back to just the classic health system. And the better question is, should you go down in 2 hits without Juggernaut? I'm going to be happy either way. If they do the 3-hit system or the 2-hit system, I think given that there's no shields and no armor, I think a 3-hit system makes more sense. But even still, I wouldn't complain with more of a challenge. On top of that though, there should be no augments. So for those who don't know, augments is kind of like in Cold War, where you could upgrade your perks, upgrade certain abilities to, you know, tier 5, stuff like that, and they give you more features. This should go for the classic mode, and the perks should be restored back to their classic functionality. No extra bells and whistles, just the plain simple Juggernog increases your health. Quick revive lets you revive faster. Speed cola increases your reload speed, right? Nice and simple, nice and elegant. And of course, with augments and, you know, being able to upgrade things like your special ability, you know, your energy mines, your ether shrouds, they're gone. Just get rid of them. If we're doing a classic mode, we got to do it right, man. So all of those abilities also need to go. With regards to things like a perk limit, I think, yeah, honestly, I think a 4 perk limit makes sense. If it were up to me, I would opt for a 5 perk limit. I know that's not exactly like the classic way, but I'd say, you know, a 5th perk is nice. I feel like it's just a nicer number for a perk limit, but I definitely don't think you should be able to just go and get every single perk, especially from the Wonder Fizz, where you can just spam it and grab all the perks instantly. Like it's just a little too easy, and it does make you far too powerful. So then you couple this all together and you really have the classic feel of zombies when it comes to how powerful you are as a player. And I think whilst we're on this topic, we should confront Gobblegums. Now, realistically, I'm not naive enough to think that they'd scrap Gobblegums for this mode, because Gobblegums are going to be, you know, a core way that Activision make money from Black Ops 6. Of course, you can earn gums through legit gameplay, which is nice, just like in Black Ops 3, but of course, they're gonna have, you know, a liquid divinium equivalent that allows players just to buy heaps and heaps of Gobblegums. Now, me personally, I don't think Gobblegums belong in the classic mode at all, which I know might upset some people, because again, a lot of people would consider Black Ops 3 as, you know, the classic mode, but I think Gobblegums, again, make things slightly too easy. But what I would say would be a nice compromise is allowing Gobblegums, but not megas. So just the classic roster of Gobblegums, you know, your in plain sight or whatever Black Ops 6 would have. Having access to those, but just not the mega Gobblegums, might be a fun compromise to prevent, you know, dividing the community within the classic community. Because, you know, you don't want to go and make a mode for the classic fan base and then have that fan base split in half between people who like Gobblegums and people who don't. I mean, that would be messy. I'm happy for them to scrap them all together, but to be honest, a nice compromise again would be classic Gobblegums only. But then the other controversial thing that I want to talk about is score streaks, because we're getting near to the end of all the topics that we're going to go through, and with score streaks, I'm really on the fence, because I know it's not in the classic zombies, but I really like score streaks. I'm not gonna lie. I think deep down, I know I have to set my personal opinion aside and just let them get rid of score streaks. But in a weird way, I kind of wish that, you know, you can get score streaks just through, you know, the point system instead of the salvage system, which of course would be gone. But, you know, just make them ridiculously expensive. Make a chopper gunner like 50,000 points or just something insane. Of course, with the old point system, that 50,000 points is actually attainable, but it's still a lot of money. If it were completely up to me, that's how I'd do it. Though, again, like I said, I'm kind of being biased towards a feature that I actually like from Cold War, and I don't think that's really fair. If we're doing a classic mode, we should just, you know, scrap all of those features. But I don't know. I like hopping in a chopper gunner. Sue me. But last and not least, for this classic mode to really shine, we need one extra thing and one extra thing only: separate scoreboards. We need the scoreboards for the classic mode to be isolated from the other modes. Maybe even add some extra rewards if you find the time to do so. You know, hitting round 100 on Terminus in the classic mode gets a special calling card. Something like that. That would be really cool. But at least separate scoreboards need to be a must, really, when it comes to implementing this mode. But all in all, if you bring everything we spoke about together and imagine that in a public playlist setting where you can hop in to a public session of the classic game mode on Terminus, Liberty Falls, maybe any other map that's released at the time, and just diving in and seeing everyone with a starting pistol, knowing that no one can get some overpowered gobblegum right at the start, knowing that there's no overpowered crutches, you guys are in this together, that there's no way to purchase ammo when you guys run low. The sense of camaraderie, cooperation, and all of that kind of stuff would actually make me want to play public sessions again, because right now all I do is play solo or with friends. And I miss the sense of community that Zombies started so much that I do still boot up my PS3 to play Black Ops 1 on the public sessions over there. Because there's something about the feeling of this classic way of playing Zombies that just isn't represented in any way in the recent Call of Duty games. And I genuinely think that this mode, if it's done similarly to how I've described in this video, could restore, genuinely restore that feeling once again. And that would be absolutely huge for this game. So to summarize what we've gone over, ammo crates would go. There'd be one currency system, which is just points. The HUD would be dramatically reduced and hopefully zombified. If they really want to add an extra bit of spice, they could actually add legacy HUD presets to, you know, the presets of the HUDs. You can make the HUD look like Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2. That would be pretty cool. We also went over weapon rarities being scrapped, no tiered Pack-a-Punch, and potentially a restoration of Pack-a-Punch's primary interest if they scrap weapon kits as well. No armor system, the functionality of points being reduced back to the classic method where you get points per hit on a zombie, scrapping augments altogether, restoring a perk limit, reverting back to a mandatory starting pistol, hopefully an M1911, having separate leaderboards, getting rid of the special abilities, restoring health back to its original functionality, and then score streaks, you know, do whatever you want. So long as salvage is gone, okay, just get rid of salvage. And then lastly, handling gobblegums. Again, either scrap them or just stick with the classics. But all of this together would make something truly special. And I hope Treyarch implement it or something similar, because the effect it would have on this community would be genuinely astounding. It would mean that we finally get a modern Call of Duty title that accommodates for every kind of Zombies fan. And again, the beautiful simplicity of this is that pretty much most, if not all of it, can be achieved just by scrapping features that are already in the game. But that concludes this video. Lads, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.